All right, folks, we're here with a friend of mine, Eli Van Buren. We went to college together. He had the talent to ride saddle broncs. I never did. I was just a lawn dart. Nowadays, he's a working cowboy. Let's get kind of up to speed to where you started cowboying. Last I knew, you was wanting to do auto body.
Well, I wasn't planning on doing any kind of schooling at all past high school. I was high school rodeoing and helping my dad on the ranch, and I had a job for a cow farmer type of guy in town after school in the wintertime. And about a week after graduating high school, a rodeo coach in Iowa called me, asked me if I'd be interested in coming and rodeoing for him. And well, yeah, I wasn't against it. I was all about getting to rodeo some more. And so we talked some scholarships and things like that. And then it came time to decide what I was going to take for classes. And I always enjoyed welding, but that was just a 1 year program. And if I was going to get the scholarship, I had to be there for 2 years. So I narrowed it down to auto body. I got to do some welding and painted a couple vehicles and restored an old pickup. And I've painted one vehicle and one stock trailer since then. And that was in, oh, when did I get done with trade school? In 2010, 11. So
Yeah,
it's been a little bit.
it had to been 10 because you were a year ahead of me.
Yeah, yeah. So I graduated high school in eight. So yeah, it had been 10.
What old pickup did you restore in school?
Yeah, this is my first vehicle I got when I got my driver's license. It was a 79 Chevy short bed
350?
that, yep, it had a 350 with a 4 speed in it, 4-wheel drive, step side. I wasn't crazy about the step side, but people thought they were cool. I wasn't a huge fan of the step side, but yeah, so I rebuilt that and it's sitting in a shed in Minnesota still.
Oh yeah, remember that step side pickup I had in college?
Oh yeah,
I put
that white one, extended cab step side.
three transmissions in 2 years, buddy.
Oh man,
A good old four L
that's
60E right there.
yeah, that's the mid '90s Dodge for you.
Yeah, yeah. Um, those step sides they look good, but yeah, they're kind of. I mean, you get a little bit of anything back there, and they're useless.
Yeah, it was a toy. I mean, I it was way too nice of a pickup when I bought it. It had been restored once, and it was way too nice of a pickup for a 16-year-old kid to own
Sure.
and daily drive it year round in Minnesota with the snow and the salt that they spread on the roads and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean it was pretty cherried out when I bought it, and this is 2 years, 3 years of driving it every day, and it needed restored again.
Yeah, I could believe that. I spent a winter in Wisconsin, where my wife's from, and had a 2005 Dodge half ton. Spent one winter there, came back to Nevada, and it's got cancer on it now.
Oh yeah, yeah. It don't take long up there, man. And then that them old step sides, there's no wheel liners or anything like that. Like all that crap just gets caked up underneath them old tin panels, and it just hangs out there until you make it leave.
Oh yeah, catches in the pinch welds.
Yep, absolutely.
So you're are you cowboying in Minnesota right now, or
No, that's just where I was born and raised.
okay?
So
So
I grew up. Um, it's kind of funny because we've both kind of been around this country doing this, and when people ask where you're from, I don't really know what to tell them anymore because I've been a lot of places, and sometimes I tell them where I was at last. Um, but right now, with what's going on where I'm from, it's a little bit embarrassing to tell people you're originally from Minnesota. But yeah, it was different back then. Dad run. There's the part of Minnesota I'm from. There's actually quite a few beef cattle and quite a few good cowboys around there. It's a little bit of a hybrid type cowboy, and there's a lot of brush, a lot of swamp. Um, some guys pack a long rope, some guys pack a short rope, some guys dally on rubber, some guys dally on a slick horn. It's just kind of whatever you can do to get the job done back there.
sure. So when you
Uh,
broke out cowboying after school, it was around home then?
yeah, it was. So dad run 250 mother cows, which isn't a lot of places, but in that part of the country, that's quite a few cows. And you can graze on a good year, you can graze a pair to 3, 4 acres there, so it doesn't take near as much ground. But just like everywhere I've been, the pastures are disappearing rapidly because humans are moving in. So it's dad's downsized quite a bit now. He custom grazes more cattle than he owns, so he don't got to worry about the market quite as much. He
Sure.
just grazes. There's some back when the row crops were making great big money. There's a bunch of sod busters that spent their money on beef cows and then realized that they couldn't raise pairs worth of crap in a dry lot, so they was looking for people with pasture, and they found my dad. So he custom grazes like 6 or 700 in the summertime, and all on lease ground. And then they'll wean the calves. They'll come and wean the calves off of them, precondition them, come back a week later and wean them. And he holds on to the cows for another month or so, and then sends them home.
What's the predominant
So,
breeds back there?
pardon?
What's the predominant breeds in that area?
Oh man, it just depends. It really does. Like dad's place is pretty much right in the middle of the state, and it shoot,
A little bit of everything, sort of.
yeah, it really is. So like where I grew up is where it got too rocky for the farmers to dig the ground. The soil's still really heavy, but yeah, they just quit trying to farm it because it got too rocky and rough.
Sure. Sure, the rocks break equipment.
Pardon?
Rocks will break equipment.
Well, yeah, and I mean when they was settling that country, I mean it was a lot of work.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
Them guys were
they
tough that
quit.
settled the country.
Yeah, they was way tougher than I am. They and in all parts of the country, the folks, our ancestors that settled these places before we come along, was a different breed of man.
Yeah. So you ended up, you stayed there a little while, and then all of a sudden, I seen you were down in Oklahoma.
Yeah, so before Oklahoma, well, got out of trade school, went back home to Minnesota, pro rodeoed for a little while. Couldn't stay healthy, quit entering the rodeos, got my class A, and started driving truck, hauling cows over the road. And then I was just kind of amateur rodeoing here and there on the weekends. The guy that I drove truck for owned a rodeo company, so I'd amateur rodeo on the weekends, and met my wife when I was trucking, and then I got out of the truck and took a job. Her folks at the time were living in Great Falls, Montana, so we moved out there to Montana, and I took a job on a big cow calf deal. I was 23 years old, 22, 23 years old when I moved out there. That was my first ranch job away from home, and I only got to work there through the winter. My dad got sick during calving that following spring, and we ended up moving back, and I helped him finish calving.
That's that's pretty cool. I'm sure just even over that winter there, you saw enough different stuff to where you had some new perspectives and some new tricks up your sleeve to help the family outfit.
Oh man, absolutely. It was a real eye opener for me because where I'm from, on like this is gonna sound weird to you as well, but like I got sick of fighting the water because I mean the part of Minnesota I'm from, when you go look at lease pasture or something like that, like you look and see how much of it's underwater.
Like
Or
365 days a year underwater swamp ground or
yeah, just a floating bog.
ugh.
So moving to Montana and seeing neighbors bring neighbors to court over water rights
Oh yeah.
was unheard of to me.
Yeah.
Like it's obviously a very essential natural resource, but I definitely, growing up where I did, I took water for granted. And every place I've been other than Minnesota, water's a really big deal.
Yeah, when I remember when I got to college there, Eli and I went to college in Iowa, and I had never been back to Iowa. The same rodeo coach, he got a hold of me and talked me into it, just like he did Eli. And I remember driving back there the first time to go to school, and my mother was with me in that stepside truck, and we got through Nebraska, on I-80 there, and there was a bunch of pivots and this and that, and I said, okay, you know what, that makes sense here, because where I grew up was all flood irrigated predominantly.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And we got into Iowa, and then I stopped seeing the pivots, and I looked at my mom and I says, I don't know how they're irrigating here. And the first day of class, the instructor says, we introduced ourselves and all that, and I says, my name's Corey Hershkowitz. I'm from Northern Nevada. And he says, you have any questions? I says, how do you irrigate? He laughed at me. He says, we don't.
Yeah, that's just how humid and low that country is.
Yeah, and that was just as foreign to me as fighting over water was to you.
Right, exactly. Exactly. That's a whole nother, just think of how many cows a guy could run on a section of ground in Iowa if it wasn't covered in corn.
Oh yeah, if you had a good pasture grass that wouldn't kind of get washy, it'd be cool.
Oh, yeah. And that's another thing like that. The difference in forage in the parts of the country that I've been is crazy to me. Like here where I am now in Southwest South Dakota, they call it the hard grass country. And I mean, we stockpile pasture and it don't look like there's nothing out there. But man, that grass is packing some punch. And like we've had a real mild winter this year. Them cows are out grazing still. I mean, the guy I work for does a bang up job of managing this place and saving some fall grazing. And we're dry, but those cows, we're going and scattering. We're giving 2 pounds of cubes a head a day, and that's all we're supplementing
Hay
this
cubes,
winter so far.
alfalfa cubes.
Yes, sir. The
Okay,
28% cube.
okay, yep, yep. Yeah, there's one of the ranches I day work for is over on the coast of California. It's as a crow flies, maybe 15, 20 miles from the water itself. Maybe
Oh,
a skosh more. It can't be any more than 25 miles in a straight line. When you get up on the top of the mountains, you can see the ocean. And them cows, the rancher told me, he says, I make money when it doesn't rain. He says, because when it rains a lot here, the grass gets belly deep, but it's empty, it's washy. There's no nutrition in it.
yeah, yeah,
And
and that's the same. That's the same in Minnesota. I imagine it's the same as where we were in Iowa.
yeah,
Um, and the part of so yeah, I went back home from Montana and was around there for a little while. Ended up looking back, it wasn't a bad thing, but I think we could be a lot further in life had we not bought a place in Minnesota. That kind of tied us down there for 5 years.
sure.
But during that 5 years, I got tired of fighting the winter, and I took a job calving a bunch of heifers in Oklahoma for a guy, and I was right on the Red River, right on the Oklahoma Texas border, pretty south central Oklahoma. A lot of wheat pasture, a lot of river bottom kind of stuff, and that was really cool country to me. I hadn't seen anything quite like that. Good grass through the winter time. And I went back home, and from that point on, me and her, we was scheming a way to spend our winters down south, and so yeah, we another 2 years went by. I picked up day work here and there, caught spoiled farmer cows and sale barn a little bit, and drove a little bit of truck, and um, rode a lot of outside horses for the public until they burned me out on that. And then the second winter in a row in Minnesota, we got feet of snow, and I remember the dates for the rest of my life. The one winter of 2018, I believe it was. We got 2 feet of snow on May 8th. In the winter of 2019, we got 2 feet of snow on May 14th. And I told my wife, I said, this is the last winter we're spending up here. I'm finding work somewhere else. And in the December of 2019, I got in contact with a guy in Texas, and by about February 1st of 2020, we were moved down to Texas just in time for good old coronavirus to hit.
Yeah,
And
I was gonna say move across the country and get locked down.
yeah, it was the one of the funny things about that move is my birthday's in the middle of November, and my driver's license had expired that in November, but I knew I was fixing to move, so I was like, I ain't gonna renew it until I get where I'm going, just save paperwork, because you know how it is, Cowboy, you don't get to town during normal person business hours super often.
Right.
So it's like, I'll just, when I get down there and I get proof of residency, I'll just get my Texas driver's license. Coronavirus hits. You can't get an appointment to get at the DMV to do driver's license and stuff. And then being down there, they need a whole lot more stuff than I was used to. Like I needed a birth certificate, my social security number, or my social security card, originals of both the birth certificate and the social security card. I needed 2 utility bills in my name, no older than 90 days, no younger than 30 days, which is also a struggle for a hired man because the utilities are not in my name.
Right.
That's one of the perks to being cowboying for a living is you usually get a shed to live in and you don't got to pay your own light bill.
Right.
So we lived in Texas for 3 years, and I had an expired Minnesota driver's license the whole time. And then
That's awesome.
we we left Texas, and then my wife's father started having some health troubles, and at this time he was living in Chadron, Nebraska, in the Panhandle of Nebraska, and so he was having some health troubles, and our youngest two daughters didn't really know my in-laws very well. So we're like, you know what, our kids need to know their grandma and grandpa. So I started looking for work in the Panhandle of Nebraska. I get work up there, and live there long enough to get some mail in my name. So I go into the DMV to get my driver's license, and I hand her my almost 4 years expired Minnesota driver's license, and she's like, I don't know what to do right now. And I'm like, oh, you can do whatever you want, I guess. I don't know the rules. And I ended up having to take my written test and my driving test about 2 weeks after our oldest daughter took her driver's test.
Jeez. That's awesome. You're like, I've been
And
trotting
I,
everywhere.
hate, I hate to admit it, but I failed the driving test the first time.
What'd they fail you on?
Oh, so that town's full of old one-way streets,
Oh, that'll get
and
you.
apparently one-way streets are 2 lanes. And so, like coming up to a four-way stop on a one-way street, he wants me to turn left, and I didn't change into the left lane of this one-way street before I turned left.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's what he got me on.
It would have got me. I'm not gonna lie, it would have got me.
I mean, there ain't a striped line painted down the street. I didn't know that one-way streets were 2 lanes. You got cars parked down both sides of the street, and there's not really room for two more cars side by side in the middle of that son of a buck.
No, and then I know I guess it's more popular in Nebraska there than it was in Iowa, but they got that center lane parking in the small towns too. The first time I saw that was kind of a shocker.
Yeah, that's really old school. There's one town back home in Minnesota that there's still some parking down the middle of the road or down the middle of the street, but yeah, that was the only place I'd seen like that for a long time. And then, like you said, there's a bunch in Nebraska. I seen a little bit of it in those little old towns in Texas too, but I I try not to be in town too not long enough to park anyways.
Sure. So, how did your style of cowboying or or your gear, either one or both, How have they changed as you've moved basically from the northern end of the Midwest to the southern tip of the Midwest?
Well, so like I said, growing up is kind of a bunch of mixed styles into a hybrid type of cowboy. A lot of guys rode slick fork saddles back home. I always rode a swell fork saddle. I grew up dallying on rubber, but I packed a long rope just because of the brush. Um, and then I moved to Montana. And like I said, I spent the winter in Montana. So I really didn't do a whole bunch of cowboying while I was in Montana. Um, Mostly putting out hay and calving cows. But so that Montana didn't really change any of my gear. I moved back to Minnesota. I was 23, 24 years old, married with a child, trying to make a living on my own. And like that's when I started taking all those outside horses and day working and started getting phone calls. The man that owned the local sale barn that I spent some time working at through high school, he started giving people my phone number when they had a cow that was brushed up or something needing caught. So he was nice enough to do that for me. Started uh, kicking my name around to people. So I went and started catching these spoiled cows, but I couldn't afford to pay nobody to help me, and I was usually mounted on kind of a piss head outside horse that some trail rider woman owned. And then I got myself in a few jams, lost a few ropes, burnt the hell out of my hands a couple of times. And I was probably the first son of a gun in Minnesota to ever start tying hard. And, and it took me a long time to admit to my dad that I was packing a horn knot on my stuff because he started giving me grief about a shorter rope. Because even through high school rodeo, I roped in high school rodeos, team roped and roped calves. I roped calves with a 28 footer, but in the team roping, I roped with a 50 footer because I was used to swinging it and I could catch with it. So dad started giving me grief about packing a shorter rope. And I never told him it was because I was tying hard when I was going to catch these spoiled cows. And then I moved south, and you know what it's like down south. It's kind of fast, and cattle are pretty wild. The man I worked for down in Texas, he dealt in stalkers. He bought all his yearlings out of Florida. His dad started that business years ago, and he bought all his yearlings out of Florida. And some of them Florida Bramers, I don't think they ever saw a human until they got to the sale barn, and then they got choused around the sale barn and stuck on a truck and ended up in our hands. And they'd get off the truck on the fight. We'd let them sit for 12, 18 hours, process them, cut the nuts out of them, cut the horns off of them. We'd start them. He had, oh, half a dozen, 10, 12 acre starting traps there at the house. We'd get them straightened out, and then we'd kick them out on these big lease pastures. They were really good leases for that area. Good fence on all of them. Had to because of the type of cattle that was in there. But sure enough brush, enough mesquite, enough thorns, and there were still, like I said, we try to get them straightened out at the house, but when you only got 6 acres or 6, 10, 12 acre traps, and you're getting a couple loads of yearlings a week, they get full really fast, so you got to cycle them through there. So a lot of times those yearlings, them sets of yearlings wasn't plumb straight when we brought them to the lease places, so there was a lot of doctoring by myself to do. And I stayed tied hard the whole time I was in Texas. I almost never dallied when I was down there. Um,
So you were in Minnesota one day, burnt your hand, lost your rope, and said, "To hell with it, I'm going to tie off."
yeah,
You no
yeah,
no
that's exactly
nobody
what happened because I
nobody.
rode back to the trailer. I knew I had a junk rope in the trailer, and I rode back there, and I remembered why it was a junk rope is because the Hondu had broke out of it. So I tied a quick one in the tail of it, and then tied the original Hondu end onto my horn and went to her and got her caught. And it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. So
No,
we just,
no mentor, nothing. Just I'm gonna figure this out.
no, I mean, but I'd packed a long rope my whole life. Like I knew how to handle my slack,
Right.
and I knew that if I could get it dabbed on that cow, that I could go back to two-handing on this horse's face to keep me out of a wreck. So she was brushed up, and I had the dogs. The dogs was baying on her, so she wasn't going anywhere. And I just kind of hula hand lobbed it out there, and thankfully got her caught. And she was just fighting the dogs at this time, and I turned that damn colt around and rode off and drug her out of there, and had control of my colt and started hollering at dogs, and to the trailer we went.
Did you drag her in the trailer, or did she get sick of the dogs and get it in the trailer?
No, I ended up laying her down. I got her out to some hard ground where I knew I could get the pickup to, and I laid her down and tied her down, brought the pickup to her, and then so a buddy of mine, he's a he's probably he rode broncs really good growing up. He married my second cousin, really good cowboy. He showed me a deal, and he had a half top trailer. I didn't have a half top trailer, but he showed me a deal. You got them critters laid down or tied down, and if you back your trailer up to their tail head, leave them tied down, and then run your rope through your trailer, and just, I mean, gas it and yank on them. They kind of teeter totter into the trailer, so they ain't choking out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good thing it worked because that damn horse I was riding was pretty smoked by this point.
Yeah, like I don't know what it is. Even if you leg one up, it seems like a horse that's been like a town horse. They never seem to quite have the grit as something that's never spent a lot of time in town.
No, I 100% agree. Like you can, right now I've got a string of colts. It just happens that I might say lucky some days. Some days I might say I got unlucky, but I got a string of 3-year-olds right now, and every one of them was, I mean, born someplace where they're range mares. These colts know how to carry themselves. They're durable. Where like the real high power bred stuff that my wife likes to buy, and it's okay that she buys it because usually when we get them made, they're worth a lot of money.
Right.
Um, but I don't get to do that kind of stuff on them very often because I've crippled plenty of them, and they just don't take it like those range raised colts do.
No, and there's a spot in a horse's mind when he has to watch where he puts his feet from day one. They're so much further ahead throughout every stage of the game versus something that was taught, where to put its feet. Whether I've seen guys do like the tires and the round pen and the logs and this and that, and you can get by on one that way. But when they have that from day one, it's natural to them.
Yeah.
You're just better off on them.
Well, and I mean we got a 6-year-old right now, and he's bred in the purple as far as running bred horse is concerned, but he's been a Cowboys horse his whole life. But I cuss him daily because he is the trippingest rascal I've ever been on. I mean, and I keep him shod tight, and and he just don't. And I mean, we're in the high plains here. It's not like it's super rocky. There are places that are pretty rough. We got some badlands type ground on this ranch, but I mean, he'll trip over a wide blade of grass if he's not paying attention.
Yep, my team roping
But that's, I
horse.
mean, he was born in a something the size of most people's backyard, and
Right.
that's where he was raised until he was 2 years old, and then that poor bastard got purchased by us.
When I started cowboying professionally, my high school rodeo horse, and he was from Mississippi, and he's just an arena horse, and he'd like somebody that had the drive could have took him a long way in a pro rodeo. I mean, he was all horse there. Well, I started cowboying, and he'd been just kind of existing in my parents' backyard for a number of years, and like
Right.
like you said, he could trip on his own shadow.
Yeah, it's they spend all that time in that flat,
Yeah.
dug up ground, and it's like they forget to pick their feet up and set them down. And there's not them range bred colts are just more deliberate with their movement. It seems like,
Yeah,
and I don't,
they got a
I don't
set of
know if
eyes
that's the
underneath
right
them.
way to, yeah, I don't know if that's the right way to explain it, but that's how it plays out in my head, anyways.
No, I agree with you. Remember getting on practice horses in college, and that one side of it was the ranch's old junkyard, and them horses were always hanging out in there.
Oh yeah,
And there was never a hair out of place on any of them horses.
no, and that's another. I mean, you drive through the countryside. I mean, where we were in Texas, there were some pretty backwoods places. Um, but yeah, I mean, scrap iron and rolls of old wire and just
Yeah,
junk and everywhere. And that horse, they never got a scratch. And then like here where we are now, I'm sitting right here in the leather shop is 6 miles from the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And it's the same way over there. I mean, there's some there's some horses over there that you couldn't kill with a bullet, man.
yeah. Right before I went to college, when we met, I was loping cutting horses for a big time cutting horse trainer, and I mean they'd cut a cow 7 ways to Sunday, and they were good at it. But you had to be careful walking them out of stall because they'd hip themselves on the stall door if you didn't line
Oh
them up
yeah.
right.
Oh yeah.
And no
Yeah,
spatial awareness.
and it's irritating because I mean, but it's just same planet, different world kind of thing.
Oh, for sure, for
And
sure.
that's yeah, and that's not like going as many places as I have. It's been really, really fun to see the different styles and I haven't been to true blue buckaroo country. I've been around guys that are buckaroo style and their horsemanship is very buckaroo style and it's admirable. Um, I just don't know that I've ever kept a personal horse around long enough to get him straight up in the bridle.
Man, it takes a long time. It's
Uh, we've got these two geldings that we call them lifers. They'll be here. Our kids will ride them, and they're pretty broke. I mean, some of the nicer horses I've had the opportunity to make, and those are what I call my bridle horse. But my bridle horse and a vaquero's bridle horse are two different things.
sure.
Um, I mean, he'll slide stop and he'll spin around, but he's got a hinge pork bit in his mouth. He ain't packing a spade, and I ain't full of rawhide and silver. I'm a real plain kind of guy, but I try to make broke horses, but the type of broke horse that I can sell to just about anybody, and
Right.
they'll get along with them.
Right.
Um,
You've heard me. We were talking a while back, and you heard me tell you that my Mustang's not a bridle horse; he's a bridle rack.
yeah,
You know,
bridle track. Yeah,
he's got a bridle in his mouth. It's a Mona Lisa. It's not a full spade. Um, and in my mind, well, on a true bridle horse, the reins never come tight, and that ain't the case with the old Mustang. So he's just a bridle rack.
yeah, and that's kind of what I call my bridle. The ones I call a bridle horse. Like I got to kind of remind them that they're broke and pack their head like a gentleman. Um, the reins will come tight every once in a while, but not for very long. It's just a little suggestion, a little reminder here and there, and usually it don't take but one or two at the beginning of the day. But I don't get to ride those guys very often anymore. Those are the middle daughter, she rides the one, and the other one is he's actually a very nice barrel horse, but he will go catch a wild cow from time to time still because there ain't nothing can outrun him.
You think being able to go catch a wild cow and having the experiences of doing it have helped him being a barrel horse for your wife?
Oh, absolutely. And everything, whether we own them, which anymore I don't take outside horses for the general public. I've got enough of my colts, my own colts and my wife's colts to get rode. Um, but everything of ours, I'll start them as a 2 year old, and I might put 30 rides on them. It depends on how bad I need horse flesh. I might put 10 rides on them. I might put 30 rides on them. I might ride them every day for 2 months because they are all I got. But everything goes cowboy and drag some calves to the fire. Um, we'll probably rope something. We might roll one out in the pasture before they even see the arena. Um, I go from the round pen to the pasture. They don't see the big arena until I tell my wife they're ready.
Sure. So are you
And for
breeding or buying your colts?
right now we have our very first bred mare. We've owned her 3 times now. Owned her, sold her, owned her, sold her. Um, she's a cutting bred mare. She failed out of cutting class. I think the only reason she didn't make it as a cutter is because she was probably too little even for them as a 2 year old. She wasn't going to make a futurity horse, so they got rid of her.
Sure.
Um, and she's, I mean, all cut and blood. She's a granddaughter of Dual Ray on the top side, and her dam, I can never remember her dam's name or even her dam's bloodlines, but her dam uh, won like 60,000 in the cutting pen. So I mean, she's all cut and blood. She didn't make it as a futurity cutter and got in the hands of a barrel racer somewhere. And we bought her the first time she had just turned just as a 5 year old year. We bought her for the first time. My wife hauled her, won quite a little bit on her. Somebody offered a crazy amount of money. We sold her. She's just too stingy for the average horse owner. She never bucked. She just can be a lot to deal with. She's not super great to shoe. There for the longest time, you had to pen her by herself. She'd whip the snot out of anything you put her with. Um, but now she's 12 or 13 years old, maiden mare. We, my wife entered a drawing for free breeding to a running bred stud, so she's bred to a pretty high caliber running bred stud right now for a June 1st baby. But that'll be the first foal that we've ever had.
Oh man, that's the of all the branding seasons and branch rodeos and seeing old friends and stuff like that. Foals are my favorite thing about this lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah, and we're really excited about it. This is a new venture for us. Um, Depending on how this goes, we've got some studs picked out to rebreed her to. Um, she's sound. I mean, she's not. It's not like we. It's not like we bred her because she can't. We can't use her anymore. But right now, just her pedigree to us right now is worth more to raise babies than to rope on her.
Sure, sure. One thing,
Uh,
like if I give you a little piece of advice having a baby, is have your vet on call and have him come out and give that foal a snap test as soon as he hits the ground. Um,
What I see, I don't even. That's how green I am to this deal. What I don't even know what a snap test is.
so I'm sure I'm I'm going to explain the way I understand it, and you should research it more, of course. But a snap test, they'll take some blood and they'll put it in this little deal that it snaps when the test starts, and it tells you if the foal has got the antibodies from the mother and drinking the colostrum that it needs, and if it doesn't, then it needs an expensive bag of stuff via IV. I forget exactly what it is to get those
Okay.
antibodies. If not, the foal goes into sepsis and he dies.
Okay.
I went through that whole
Yeah, 'cause
train wreck this year and lost one.
yeah, I remembered. I remembered you had terrible luck full this last season, Poland.
Yeah, and that's what had happened. So he was that mare's fourth foal, and we had no problems with the first three. And I mean, his legs were all folded up and stuff. That's the half draft side of him coming out. That didn't bother us. They would have straightened out. Um,
Yeah.
but either she didn't make colostrum correctly or he didn't stand up and nurse soon enough. My wife watched him nurse, but for whatever reason, he didn't absorb the colostrum and get those antibodies, so the sepsis set in. Um, where in hindsight, if we'd have had a snap test, I think they want it like less than 12 hours old, or maybe at 12 hours, real
Okay.
early. Then we could have given him that bag of, I don't remember what it was, but along with that bag is like a 1 in a million chance that the foal's allergic to it, and he was. So
No way.
yeah, the only thing that could have saved his life, I mean, it literally killed him. The vet brought him back with epinephrine, and she said, "We got a half a bag in him. I can't give him the other half and kill him again, so it is what it is." It was just kind of a perfect storm of things gone wrong for him. But
Right. And it, I don't want to sound insensitive or crude or anything right now, but the older I get, the more I believe in natural selection.
yeah,
Like
absolutely. And it could have
it
been something in his stomach. Maybe it wasn't a problem with the mare's colostrum. Maybe his stomach wasn't right.
right, exactly. And it's the different, I'm going from the cow calf side of this world to I worked in a little family feed yard for on and off for a short period of time. So the cow calf deal to the yearlings and the finishing beef cattle, and then down to Texas to the yearlings on pasture and wheat. And it's like, man, I know a lot of tricks to keep stuff alive. And sometimes they just ain't meant to stay alive.
Yeah, 100%.
Like it used to just eat at me if I'd lose a baby calf or if I had a yearling that I doctored 2 days ago that I was happy with myself because he didn't look that sick, but he sure enough he needed a shot. You know, I caught him and doctored him 2 days ago, and I ride out there and he lays there dead and the buzzards are plucking his eyes out.
Right.
It's sometimes it's you do what you can, but you can't. I used to get really upset about it. I would let it wreck my day. I'd let it wreck my week. But this guy I work for now, he says, "Well, if anybody tells you they ain't never lost one, they ain't done it very long."
Right. Yeah, and I learned the same thing. I learned that when I laid down at night, I put hands on everything sick that I needed to. I did my job.
Yes, yeah,
The
and
the medicines and the treatments, they're great, and the management practices, you make changes here and there, and that helps. In the end of the day, like you said, if something wants to die, it's gonna die.
yeah, and it used to eat at me, but anymore, and also the older I get, the stronger I've gotten in my faith, and I cannot control everything.
Right.
I can, and that's a hard thing for me to accept sometimes still. I'm getting better at it. But
It's easier
man,
when
I
you walk with
I
Jesus.
can yeah, it's man, it's all I'm in control of is my attitude and my effort. And if I can keep a good attitude and try hard, everything else is in God's hands, man.
For sure. That's like they're losing that little foal, and then my wife lost her good paint mare, the one that she had at college there. You saw
The
her.
one she college rodeoed on,
Yep.
gosh,
Yeah, we lost her a couple months ago, and it's the same deal. It's we did the best by both of them, and in the end, it is out of my control. But
sometimes it don't hurt no less, no
no,
matter
it
how
it
much.
don't hurt no less. But when you walk with Jesus, and you realize that He gives you the grace for mistakes made, or the grace to be mad at yourself, even that makes it easier for me.
Oh, for
And
sure.
allowed me to have the grace with myself, I guess is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I was talking faith with a good buddy of mine. He's actually a traveling partner when I was pro rodeoing. He's really gotten strong in his faith, and I couldn't be more proud of him. But we was having a good faith talk one morning over coffee, and I said, "Man, there's just some things I've done that I don't know if I can forgive myself." And he says, "Eli, I knew you were ignorant, but I didn't think you were that ignorant." I said, "Man, that's kind of harsh. What do you please enlighten me." And he says, man, Jesus is forgiving you. He says, if you can't forgive yourself, that's like you saying you're more important than Jesus. I was like, all right, that's kind of profound, but I'm going to take that in the shorts and I'm going to think about it forever.
It's good words. Good words. So, what's your favorite verse?
My favorite verse,
Yep.
man, I can't quote many verses. I'm extremely young in my faith. I didn't grow up in the church.
Right.
Um, I've always been a believer, but it took me 30 some odd years to accept Christ as my savior. And so like I've met some very influential people since I've been in this area, and they're just saturated in the faith, and it's changed my life. Um, Neighbor guy, Grady, young feller, super strong in his faith. He's just on fire for the Lord. And then actually he he doesn't coach there anymore, but he was the rodeo coach at Chadron State University for a long time. Guy by the name of Dustin. Used to ride bareback horses really good. I think he probably still could if he wanted to crack back out. He's in phenomenal shape. He another guy that's just a walking testimony to how Jesus can change your life if you let him. And man, I'm a firm believer in whatever that Latin said on the side of the chuck wagon on Lonesome Dove, the motto, it you are who you surround yourself with. And started surrounding myself with great godly men and great husbands and leaders, and it's really turned my life around.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. It they say easiest way to be a million, or if you hang around four millionaires, you'll be the fifth kind of concept.
Absolutely, you hang around with four losers, you're going to be the fifth.
Yep. Yep. So
So
you
it was, and I don't ever want to think that I was hanging around with losers, but I dang sure there was times in my life where I hung around fellas that didn't have a whole lot of direction.
right. Fort Dodge. Just kidding.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I'm joking. I'm joking. They
I,
were.
I was one of those guys without a whole lot of direction.
Oh, we were all just lost college kids.
My direction went from vertical to horizontal quite rapidly on college nights in town.
Oh man, we had some fun college rodeo, and no. Do
Oh,
do
a
you
little bit too much times.
was that you and Tanner, or who was it? We were watching film from practice or from the rodeo the weekend before, whatever it was, and Tanner reaches into his backpack and pulls out them pigeons.
That was Tanner. We he, that I mean, I might have been involved, but that was definitely Tanner's idea. You
Oh.
don't know how much time we spent catching those pigeons, dude.
How did you even catch him? It's not like was there a fish net you found or
Yeah, no, we didn't find it. Tanner spent his own money to buy a fishing net in town to catch pigeons.
Oh, so the story, I guess the full story on that, as I remember it, we were watching films and Tanner had this backpack on, but he kept a hold of the straps of it. Remember? And he like, and just that big grin he had on his face.
Yeah.
And Coach finally says, "Tanner, what is in your backpack?" Tanner sets it down and real gingerly pulls out these two pigeons, and we all started laughing. Didn't
Well,
we?
in that little old room that we watched film in, there wasn't room for six people. And
No.
we had 14 or 15 of us in there, and now we got two pigeons.
Yeah, and we tied them together with a hay twine when we turned them loose, and they forked the power line.
Yeah,
That wasn't our brightest idea.
cruel and unusual. Man, we got bored fast.
We got in trouble over that one too.
I think the biggest trouble, or not even the biggest trouble, this coach showed up. so we lived over there in the projects, you know.
Yeah.
It was your first year, so you had to live on campus, I think was the rule, right?
Yeah, yeah, you had to act like you lived on campus or something like that.
Right, right, right. So we lived over there in the projects, and we was clear on the west side of that apartment complex. And right outside the door of the apartment was that small little parking lot, and then it was cornfield as far as you could see.
Yeah.
And me and Tanner had built this potato gun, and we just shoot potatoes off of the stoop into that cornfield over and over and over again. And then Scooter, you remember Scooter?
Oh yeah.
So Scooter had been gone, and he was fixing to return. So, and he knew nothing about this potato gun. We had built it over the weekend. And Scooter was set for his return, and we sit there in the hallway waiting for Scooter to get back with this potato gun. It was loaded with fuel, but it had no potato in it. But it would still, I mean, it would pop. I mean, a big old bang when you lit it off, whether there's a potato in it or not, just from the combustion. So me and Tanner were sitting on the floor in the hallway like a couple of little kids giggling, waiting for Scooter to open this door, and we're gonna set this potato gun off and scare him, you know. We hear a vehicle pull up, we hear a door open and close, hear footsteps coming up to the door, and that door handle turns, and Tanner lets that thing rip. Who stands in the doorway? Coach.
Wait. It's Bridget or Terry?
Bridget.
Oh, no, you'd been better off with Terry.
Yeah, we were she was not as tickled about it as we were.
Oh man. So what?
We put her through the ringer, man. She probably don't remember half of the stuff we done because, man, we she came out of that deal smelling like a rose, though. She's a good coach.
Yeah, she was awesome. Terry was awesome too.
Oh yeah, they're both
I said,
great coaches. I mean, and turn that rodeo program around.
oh yeah. Well, they canceled it that first year I was there, and brought it back, canceled it, brought it back, and then finally one day, Coach sat us all down because there was a couple freshmen with my class, and she says, "Guys, this is it. This last year, we got the official word." And it was like, okay, well, I'm fixing to have half my credits for my degree. I might as well come back next year and just try and stay out of trouble and get, the little piece of paper that says I funded the school.
Right,
And
right.
that was like that for a month or two, and then all of a sudden it's full steam ahead. They're recruiting. We got the team back, and I don't remember exactly how it all played out. But I was the only team member of my class that went back for my sophomore year there. So I had 200% different rodeo teams between my freshman year and my sophomore year.
Oh shoot, I didn't know that
I
because
was the only guy that did yeah, with my class, I guess you could say.
right. Yeah, because I did Bailey not go back to school there?
She didn't rodeo second year. Her and I couldn't afford
Okay,
it.
okay.
She went to school, but she didn't rodeo.
I got you. Yeah, because so the coach that called me was not Bridget. It was the coach before Bridget.
Okay.
Um, and then I think the fall rodeo season had gotten through, and then something had happened, some kind of dramatic. I can't even remember what had happened. But anyways, after the fall rodeo season, my freshman year is when Bridget came in.
Oh yeah.
And then I rodeoed for Bridget through the spring season. And she was just kind of feeling the team out, feeling the region out, things like that. Um, we did okay, and then I was on I was on my way home from school, headed back north for the summer, and Bridget called me crying, saying that the rodeo team got disfunded. There won't be a rodeo team next year. Um, can't remember what all else was said, and I had made up my mind that I probably wasn't going to go back. And then I don't even know. It wasn't very much time had went by, and she called me back again and said, "Okay, we got it all straightened out. We're gonna have a rodeo team. Will you come back and rodeo for your sophomore year?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, I mean, and I didn't get a lot of a scholarship, but I still wanted that scholarship to help out. And she said, "Yeah, you still got the same scholarship." And I was like, "All right, yeah, I'll come back." And that then my sophomore year, your freshman year, we had a pretty gosh darn strong rodeo team
Yeah. Yep.
for a junior college in central Iowa with not a lot of funding. Um, I mean, she's had, I don't even know for sure. Well, I know for sure two bareback riders that were in her program have been to the NFR multiple times. Uh, one of them has won 3 world titles.
Right.
Um, I mean, there's some talent that Bridget was a part of, and
Yeah. I
she's a spectacular coach, and so is Mr. Terry Coleman.
yeah, absolutely. I never saw anybody share the emotional roller coasters that rodeo brings with whether it's their blood child or they're a coach coaching a student. I never saw anybody share the emotions as much as those two did. I fought
Well,
my
and
head all through college, and I'd have a little victory, and Terry and Bridget were just on top of the world with me, or I'd fight my head and do something stupid. And man, I can remember just Terry looking at me and shaking his head, and it was like he wasn't mad at me by any means. He knew how mad I was at myself, and he felt bad for me about it.
yeah, he knew he didn't have to say nothing.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
I enjoyed rodeoing for those two.
what I thought was super special about that too is it was for everybody. Like, Coach Coleman, he rode bareback horses, but he didn't just feel for the bareback riders. Um, if one of the bulldoggers missed the inside horn, he was just as upset with them as they were. Um, it was even, barrel racer, for instance. Terry didn't run barrels, but he was, like you said, he was emotionally involved in everybody's performance, and so was Coach Lambright.
Do you remember when we talked Mason to get on bareback horses, the bull rider Mason?
Dude, he
You
he
remember?
ended up riding bareback horses for a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah, through the semester. I don't know if he went further with it. So the we we had a mighty bronchi at the fairgrounds there, and that's what we practice on. And we would go get on practice horses a couple times a week, weather permitting. Well, we talked Mason, who was this what 5'6", 5'7". He wasn't very tall,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
but
5'6". I don't even know if you 7 foot,
he
but
I mean cut though built. He had to been
oh, dude,
10%
he
body
was,
fat tops.
yeah, and I mean the wrestler physique is
Yeah,
what I call it.
if I
Like, I
remember
mean,
right, he was a state champion wrestler in high school. I could be wrong there, but
I don't know if he's a state champ, but I know he did well in
yeah.
high school wrestling, and probably could have college wrestled if you wanted to.
Oh, guaranteed. Guaranteed. Anyways, we talk him into this, and I don't remember whose rigging we set up for him, but we got him on the Mighty Bronchi, and we were all kind of shocked at how well he rode that Mighty Bronchi. But that spring was wet, 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 and we couldn't get any practice horses bucked out because of the mud. So we take him to this college rodeo. It was in Brookings, South Dakota, in that big Swifttail Center.
Yeah, the big indoor deal.
Oh man, that's a cool place to rodeo. Um,
Yeah,
and I remember I helped him set his rig in, and he's standing there. If I remember right, he rode left-handed, so his left arm's taped up, and his horse is in a left-handed delivery chute. So the the way he was standing there, he was up by that horse's head, and like the anthem's playing, and everything's quiet, and that horse reaches up and bites him in that arm. Remember?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, grabbed about jerked him into the buck and shoot, and he reared back, just I mean, out of reflex because Mason was
He
he
was
was
not super confident around equine.
no he rode bulls and he didn't, yeah, it wouldn't even bother him, but he wasn't confident around any kind, but he wasn't like mean by nature at all.
Mm-mm.
But that horse bit him and grabbed a hold of him and shook him, and he got his arm free and reared back and he hit that horse as hard as he could right between the eyes.
Lucky he didn't kill a horse.
Yeah, he's lucky he didn't break his hand.
Yeah,
That
that
horse
too.
that horse goes to rearing up in the chute. Now, I mean, like it's quiet. The anthem's playing, everybody's paying attention, you know. And here we're the one chute making all sorts of noise. Coach comes running up just in time to see it all. And coach says, Mason, what did you do that for? And he goes, she bit me, coach. He says, you can't do that, Mason. So I I don't remember where you were. I think you helped set him on that horse too. But anyways, wedges his hand in his rig and he scoots way up. I mean, he just looks like a bareback rider. And
Yeah, everything about him.
right as he nods his head, he goes, "Let her have me." And then he rode her, and I think he ended up taking second or third in the average at that show.
He even made it off on a pickup man,
Yeah,
didn't he?
yeah. Well, the not that horse, but the next horse, I think he did. Yep.
Okay, yeah, I remembered he was even successful with a pickup man very early in his bareback riding career.
Yeah, he said he was more scared of the pickup horses than he was the broncs.
Well, he'd seen us get wrecked out by a couple pickup horses, probably.
Oh
Never
man.
forget that college rodeo in Ames, Iowa. I had rode my well, I can't say I rode him. I got by him, got him spurred out, and then it was just a fist fight. But anyways, it was a shotgun setup. The buck and shoots were on the long side of the arena,
Yeah.
and that horse circled around to the right, and the whistle blew as he come to the corner. And I went two hands down, and pickup man rolled in there, and the pickup man was kind of well, not just the pickup man. The rodeo company is a little bit,
Western.
well, yeah, and some of their pickup horses are about like got about as much experience as Mason did that day. Um, and I see old pickup man can't come in. I ain't gonna drop his name. He's a great guy, and was trying his ass off on this really green pickup horse. And I go to hand him my bronc rein, and he just shakes his head. And I was like, "All right, I'm coming then." And and I stand up in that close stirrup, and everything disappears. Buck and horse, pickup man, pickup horse, everything's gone. And I just pile up in front of the pickup horse and I look up to see that the pickup horse is now bucking just as hard as the bronc buck. And old boy's just laying it to him. He got by him though. And he said he was sorry on his way by, and it didn't matter. It was everything was fine, but yeah, sometimes a pickup man getting there can be just as scary as anything else.
Oh yeah, I got ran over by a bunch of them. I was really good at breaking my binds and staying there just long enough to guarantee I'd get myself run over by a pickup man.
Yeah, it was. You know that in the bronc riding, it was always pounded in my head. Like that guy that married my cousin, he was a really good bronc rider for a long time, and he picked up really good too. And he was always pounding in my head to take care of your pickup man, and hand him your bronc rein, get all the way over, which is easier for a bronc rider than it is a bareback rider. But he says, hand them your pickup rein. He says, don't turn loose of that thing until they pull it out of your hands. He said, and then start scrambling, get all the way over to the off side of their horse, and so that's what I was always trying for. And sometimes I felt bad for the pickup horses because I was scratching and a gouging and a kicking trying to get to the other side. And I'll bet half the time I never made it to the other side. I just fell off in between them.
Man, I got hung up on a pickup horse one time in high school. It was in Reno, and the first day went by, and I think they'd transposed our scores on the judges' sheets because everybody was like, "You should have won today," and I was 2 or 3 points either way. It don't matter. But I was sitting to
Yeah.
win the average, and I knew that how high school rodeo is. You see the same stock contractors, you get the same pen of horses, so you know them really
Yeah.
well. and there was this appy, and I'd wanted to get on this appy for several months because she'd just gentle in the chutes. She'd had this little rear out and then buck straight across the pen and then just take to loping. And I thought, man, if I could get on her, I could really start moving my feet because I was pretty early in my career. And I drew her, and she did just that little tiny rear out. I barely got her marked out. I threw kind of panicked and threw my feet up way early rather than waiting for her to peek out. And she bucked across a pen, and I scratched on her a little bit. And the buzzer went off, and she stood there flat footed, well, all 4 feet flat footed, not humped up. I mean, she could have dropped her head and licked her lips, and she wasn't doing anything. And I sat up and double grabbed, and I'm looking around, and the pickup man, they trot over on either side of me. And I'm looking at them, they're like, well, I guess just break your binds. Break my binds. And she just, I mean, she didn't even pick a leg up. And I jump over on the pickup man, and when I did, I kind of threw her off balance, so I lost my push, and I ended up with my hips kind of right behind the cantle of that saddle, and I did like
Yeah.
this most awkward inchworm thing to get off that pickup horse's ass.
Looked really, really
oh, oh, it
inappropriate.
was horrible. Everybody was laughing. I ended up winning the buckle on her, and then 45 minutes later, some kid went and healed on her in the team roping.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, that's serious. Yep,
Really?
yep.
Oh my goodness.
They
That's
couldn't
funny.
they couldn't buck her in the Bronx because if you picked up on her head, she'd quit. But they'd buck her in the bareback riding, and she'd buck till the whistle and stop.
I'll be. That's cool.
She was a pretty cool little horse, and just I mean, saddle horse gentle. I mean, she was a saddle horse.
Right. There needs to be a bunch of horses just like her for these kids to learn on.
Oh man, and something that doesn't run off. There's nothing that'll cow kill a kid like a horse that runs off instead of bucks.
Well, and it ain't no help either. I
No,
mean, you're not learning nothing on them runaways. They're not learning nothing getting pile drove on, somebody's futurity colts either.
right. Well, and they don't. A lot of these kids nowadays, and it's been a lot better since the PRCA started those free rodeo camps, which they were just
Yeah.
starting when we were in college. I remember seeing
Yeah.
that program in its infancy, and it's a lot better now. But I remember seeing some of the kids, like 2 or 3 years after I graduated college, and I quit rodeo because I knew I didn't have a chance at making a decent run in the pros, so I didn't even try it. But I went to some high school rodeos, and these kids had riggings that were set up well enough to where they could hold on, but they were probably going to get backdoored if they really took a jerkin. But then they'd go to crawling these horses, and they're gouging them in the chutes on accident. And I mean, their shoot procedure alone was going to get them killed. And it's like, man, we got to have gentle high school horses for these kids.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, you
Yeah,
feel
because it's just killing off the next generation, and I agree. There's been a lot of really high profile guys in the rough stock world, you know, preaching to quit putting these kids on stuff that's too much for them, and it's hard because I imagine I've never been a stock contractor, but I imagine as a stock contractor, um, it don't pay very good to keep that kind of stuff around.
no, they don't make no money when they go to a high school show. They're doing it for
No,
the future generations.
yeah, they're just doing it for the love of the game, and that's commendable for sure.
Yeah.
Because I know when I was in high school, like you said, it was usually the same stock contractor, and sometimes the pen would change up here and there. For us, the pen of bucking horses was usually the same, but the guy that brought the bulls, he raised a bunch of bulls, and you know, looking back, I'm glad it was the way it was. But if this was to happen today, um, they'd scare everybody off. But I mean, we'd buck bulls in the slack every once in a while in high school, and now their rough stock is hurting, and even the bull riding. But I mean, we was just getting on this guy's 2 year olds and shoot breaking them, and this was back like dummy bucking bulls was still a very new thing. So or where I was from anyways, it was probably happening down south for a while, but there wasn't really anybody back home dummy bucking bulls. They was putting high school rodeo kids on them and getting some outs on them to see what they were.
Yeah. Yeah, we
So I
had
mean, just getting the crap beat out of you in the chute, and a lot of them slab sided crossbred things was small enough they could get turned around if they tried hard enough and upside down. And
yeah.
but I mean, it dang sure separated the kids that thought they wanted to from the ones that sure enough had the desire to try to be a bull rider.
Oh yeah. One of the most fun rodeos I remember in high school was in Yerington, Nevada. And that contractor, we had three or four different contractors depending upon what part of the state we in, because Nevada's such a big state. But always for Yerington, this particular contractor would bring us colts and buck them in the bareback riding and the bronc riding, and that was a Wild West show. I mean, it would have been a cool pen of colts to put in a stock saddle riding.
Right,
I mean,
right.
they'd go out wallering and sunfishing and screaming, and they like
So
you.
that's speaking of that. So I've been thinking of this for a while. What is the ranch bronc riding has grown leaps and bounds just in the last few years, and I'm trying to figure out why or how, or is there
You know any
just
ranch
more
bronc riders?
is there just more bucking horses, because I don't think there's more cowboys.
No, I think there is part of it's fueled by social media because everybody wants everybody else to see them do something cool. Um, I think that the
And I don't want to sound like I got something against the ranch bronc riding. I really enjoy watching a good ranch bronc riding, but it's I mean they're having ranch bronc ridings in like the state level amateur rodeo associations. That's an event now.
yeah, I think a lot of it's the quality of bucking horses gone up because I remember in high school the horses that were bucked in the ranch bronc riding were always just the trash
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and, and
It
nothing
was like
but.
a wild ride.
If you got three honest jumps out of a ranch bronc horse 15, 20 years ago, you were probably going to win it if you stayed on it. Even if you barely stayed on, because everything else would just go out and throw a colt fit. Well, now I think the quality of the bucking horses has improved so much where even the quote unquote trash pens that a contractor will let be bucked in a stock saddle riding, it's a good pen of horses.
Yeah,
And I think that there was a lot of guys that the truth of it is very few guys have a saddle that's specifically for the ranch bronc riding. Most guys are taking their work saddle, putting a dog collar through the fork, and that's what they're riding. Well, if they go
yeah,
out and they get that saddle mast in the chute or that horse falls over and breaks a tree in it, they don't have a rig to work in. And I think with the
exactly.
quality of the horses coming up, they got better shoot manners. They know how to buck. They know how to slow down when they go in the strip and shoot. They're not going to tear a stirrup off. So it's a little bit, maybe safer is not the right word, but maybe less risky for a working cowboy to go out and play for a weekend.
Right. Go put his everyday saddle on one
Yeah.
in a buck and shoot, and like you said, not worry about it getting completely thrashed.
Yeah. I mean, accidents always happen in livestock in general.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But and it's just well, and this is so like the part of Texas I was in was not the part of Texas that's full of true blue working cowboys. It was full of rodeo cowboys. Um, and then like my kids, the public school here where we are in South Dakota has got way more ranch kids in it than the school they went to in Texas. Let's just put it that way.
Sure.
But this is a real old part of South Dakota as far as ranches go. There's a lot of multi, three, four, and some fifth generation ranches out here. Um, but man, there's some fucking horse riders come from this part of South Dakota.
I and it
And
that's kind of always been the case South Dakota
Yeah.
for
Oh
whatever
yeah.
reason. Is it? I don't. Is it just that much grassland? If you get bucked off, it's a long walk home, or
Man, I think they're just it's just the culture here. It really I don't know how else to explain it.
yeah,
Um, this is a really neat little part of the world. It's really not to sound negative, but it's not really good for nothing other than raising cattle and cowboys.
no, that's a positive in my eyes.
I mean, absolutely. The ground here, you can't farm it. You can try, but it's not beneficial. Um, there's guys that have tried it in the past, and you can tell when you drive past a meadow that's been somebody's tried to farm it. You can tell. Um, yeah, and it just grows this hard grass, and it is far enough away from civilization that man, it's just this country was made for a cow and a cowboy.
Sure.
I really, really like it here. It's not like where we were in Texas was a very desirable part of the state, and there was a lot of people, and towns were pretty close together. Um, like here, we do our grocery shopping in Nebraska. Actually, we're closer to that's the closest Walmart.
Hmm.
We might go to Rapid City once a month. That's a 75-mile drive. So I mean, we're close enough to the big town to anything we really need we can get, but far enough away that you don't get all the riffraff floating around.
Yeah, that's a nice balance. I know, and whether it be South Dakota or Montana or Nevada, wherever ranches are, come with long drives to anywhere, and people don't realize that there's different levels of being quote out there. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
like
absolutely.
you can get people say like my friends from town. I'm 5 minutes from town, but they're in town. They say, "Oh, you're out of town." Well, no, no, not really. And
Right,
and
right.
then
No,
there's
absolutely. And that's like you send me videos and stuff of you out in big country,
yeah,
and
where
like
it's 40 miles once you hit the pavement, but there's 25 miles of gravel before that.
right,
And
right. And
your
yeah,
literal
it's
closest neighbor as the crow flies is 7 or 8 miles, and it takes an hour and a half to drive there.
yeah. And then I mean before I come to this place, the biggest place I was on was Texas, and one of those lease places, and you're gonna giggle about this, but one of those lease places was like 3,600 acres, and the other lease place was about 1,000 more acres. And we filled them some of the bucks with yearlings, and it took me all day, every day to get through those two lease places just because of the terrain and the brush and everything.
I won't
But
make me giggle. Rough country's rough country.
like I come up here and the pasture, the Forest Service pasture permit that we run the yearlings on here in the summer months, that one pasture is the same size as that smaller lease place in Texas. And
Right.
it's all, and that's one pasture. And it's not as rough. There ain't no brush. But it's still, you jump your horse off the trailer and hit a trot. If you don't know exactly where them calves are hanging out, it takes you a minute to find everybody.
That's that's one thing too that's becoming kind of lost with technology and not, and maybe not so much say trucks and trailers, but maybe as fewer outfits are passed down generation to generation. The guys that are out there every day and they know where their cattle are, whether it be on a big desert here or smaller pastures like that, when cattle are where they're not typically at, something's up. Are they short on mineral? Is water drying up? Like,
Right.
why are they there?
Well, right. And I mean, and they create, and this is just an opinion of mine. They, to me, here, and this is a closed ranch. They don't buy nothing. Everything's raised here, and it's really cool to see it. But um, what I've noticed in the 2 years that I've been here is these cattle create grazing patterns through these different pastures, and you can tell when they're fixing to move to a different part of the pasture. Um, Obviously by looking at their grass, but also, you know, where's the wind coming from? Where's the, you know, which dam has got better water in it right now, type of thing. And they're I'm starting to, I don't want to say figure out the grazing patterns because next year it'll be completely different, I'm sure. But it seems like about the time I think I got their grazing pattern figured out, it's time to come off of those Forest Service permits. So then I got to start over.
Yep. And every year's what a lot of people don't realize is every year on a permit, kind of no matter how big it is or whether it's a desert or forest permit, every year is different.
Yeah, yeah, and that's it, like in the set of cows that's on that permit that particular year is going to be different set of cows than was on it last year. On this place anyways, because when we get to turn out on permits, all of those pairs are in one big bunch on some deeded ground that butts up next to a permit. And we trot out there and we start pairing stuff up and kicking them south. And we get our 125 or 130 pairs and we take them to the permit. And then we come back and we get us another jag to go to this other permit. So like those cows may have been in that pasture before, but maybe not.
Yeah, and that's on the one real big outfit I worked in, and I say real big in terms of land, not in terms of like notoriety or anything like that. That in the 3 years I was there, um, the first year I showed up in time to help with the remnant gather, and that was a lot of fun because it was just the waspy old wenches out there, and I was fairly new to cowboying professionally, so I went to the school of hard knocks for several months. Then the second year, um, I stayed the full circle the full year that year, and that's when I learned to start reading cows on the big picture about they want to graze here and they'll move there like you say their grazing patterns, and when I learned that you can point a cow sometimes 180 degrees the opposite direction from where you need her to go, and she's going to walk a big circle faster than you could have beat her in a straight line.
Oh yeah.
Learned all the nuances of moving cattle in big country. And then the third year I was there, the owner had bought, because I quit for a year and came back. And while I was gone, the owner had bought another ranch, stripped all the cattle off of it, and put them in with that bunch of cattle that went to that desert. Man, it was like trying to herd toddlers.
Oh yeah. I imagine.
They were they were lost for one, and for two, cattle being cattle, they're even the cows that knew the desert were gonna follow the lost cow because she put her head down and started walking.
Yeah. Why is it the leaders never know where the hell they're going?
Oh man, if we ever answer that, we'll be millionaires.
With cattle and the politician.
Oh wait, speaking of cattle and politician, I had one cow I called Hillary, and
I bet she was a good one.
oh, she was cute. I tell you that they looked about the same. Um, Now, if
Oh,
so, it started when we were inside that winter feeding. I could be flaking hay off the trailer, and she's at the edge of the trailer wanting me. My wife could be on the hay trailer flaking hay off, and she's just a cow in the herd, didn't even pick her head up.
that's crazy.
3 days that there was a highway that split two bunches of cattle. One bunch went to the mountain, the other bunch went to the desert that I ran. 3 days before we turned the desert cows out, she jumps both fences, crosses the highway. So it's I think it's 18 miles the first day, and then another 17 or 18 the next day to get him out to that desert. The middle of the second day, somebody's hunting me a horseback. Guess who it is? So it's
Oh, Hillary.
old Hillary, and I am like, what the hell is she doing here? Because as much as I dislike ear tags personally, it was pretty easy on this outfit because the desert cows had one color ear tags and the mountain cows had another. I mean it,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, man, what is she doing here? I only had one tank of diesel a week to do everything I needed to do on. Was how that outfit made sure that you weren't just driving around everywhere; you were actually riding.
Right. Right.
And thought, okay, if I can get her close to camp, I'll just take her, get her in a corral at my cow camp, and load her up, and I'll take her back and I'll throw her back with mountain cows. She disappeared. I didn't see her again the rest of that summer. Summer comes and goes, Brandon season, all that comes and goes. Didn't see her. I thought, okay, well, she'd turn around, went back to the ranch, and The other guys got her up on the mountain, whatever. Well, branding season want winded down. We ended up like 13 heads short. And in big country on that number of cattle, a lot of guys would not worry about it too much, but it bothered me because I put a lot of hoof tracks down to make sure that I could be efficient. And
Yep.
it bothered me. And we were supposed to be off of that permit. I think November 1st was the date, but we started gathering usually the 1st of September. You know, the ones that wanted to go home would take them home, sort of thing.
Yep. Yep.
Well, July 15th, we were been done Brandon for a while, and I called the neighbor and was like, "Hey, I'm going to write a circle over on your allotment and just see what I see," because it was a pasture of his allotment that they weren't using that year, so there were supposed to be no cows there.
Right.
Well, I
So if you
guess
spot something, yeah, if you found something, you knew it was out of place immediately.
exactly. Yeah, well, guess who I found?
She's just hanging out by herself,
Oh
huh?
no, no, she had 12 or 13 of her best friends with her.
Oh, there's your head. There's your missing head count, eh?
Yep, and where they were found, it was closer to take them to the headquarters, the main headquarters at the ranch, than it was back to my cow camp. And there's a little bit more to the story, but for just to protect the guys that I was riding with for some embarrassment, I ended up pushing this little bunch of cows down the highway. And it's, 2 months before we're supposed to start really gathering hard. And here I am with this little tiny wad of cows pushing it down the highway to the headquarters. And the cow boss just happened to be going to town that day.
Of course he did.
To tell you what, you couldn't script it. And he stops and he looks at me and just has that look, that "what are you doing" look.
Yeah.
And I says, "Don't worry about it. I'm just gathering the remnants first this year."
Let's get this out of the way.
Yeah, man. He whipped around and went back, and I don't know, he got me a cold beer or something. He asked all the questions later. He was pretty friendly about it first. And then I left her at the headquarters that year and took all my desert cows back out to the desert, and life was better after that.
Yeah. There's one in every bunch.
Oh
It
man.
don't it don't matter. And like, yeah, it's bringing them outside cows in. It's like what happened to you with that deal. There was so when I first hired on this deal, the previous summer, my boss had a bad breed up on his younger set of cows. So he runs the 3 to 6 year old cows in one bunch through the winter, and then the 6 and older cows in another bunch. Well, his young set of cows had a terrible breed up, and he ended up buying 50 bred cows that fall right before I started working here. Um, and those cows, we kept them separate from everything else through calving season. They calved with the heifers, so our heifers start 21 to 28 days before the cows here. Um, so those balk cows calved with the heifers, and they had their very own permit. We kept those balk cows separate for an entire calendar year, and you can still, without looking at a brand, I mean, that son of a buck could be 3/4 of a mile away, and when them balk cows stick their head up, that ain't a home raiser there, because they've been here. Now they've been here 2 years, and you can still spot them from a freaking mile away. They just they didn't fall in. Now they're integrated with the old cows, but they stick to themselves. They all came off of one place, so they got their little mean girls club away from the home raisers, and nobody gets along. But they don't get their own permit anymore. They gotta fend for themselves now. But it was crazy because that first summer that they were here, they had their own permit, 50 head of them out there, and we give them 3 bulls just to be safe. And half of those cows were open that fall.
Oh, what a bunch of sows.
I mean, I mean. And then this year, I think we're down to so half of them were open, just a little less than half. I think 23 of the 50 were open that fall. and now I think we're down to like 17 of them left. They're just falling. I mean, dropping like flies.
And it's amazing how many different types of quality there is in a cow.
And I mean, and it. I could make more sense of it if they didn't come from this part of the country, but they come from a guy 30 miles north of here. And I mean, they were sold through a sale barn, but it's not like the grass is different here or the weather's any different. Like they're from here and
Man,
they just did not transition to this ranch worth of crap.
man, I go day work for him and see what he's figured out that the rest of us haven't.
Well, the longer I've been here, the more I've learned a little bit about this guy. He's kind of a cow trader,
Oh
which
yeah.
I knew that looking at these cows because some of them look like a freaking train car in Chicago. They got 6 brands down both sides of them.
What do you call her? Roadmap.
Yeah, no kidding. That there is a gangland. Uh, but she, but yeah, some of them they're mostly trader cows, and I think because my boss he does calve later than most people around here. I think they were somebody's rebreeds, is what they was.
Oh yeah.
So that's probably why half of them failed the test the first year, and we knocked another handful of them off this last year. So
Well, the next guy that gets him ought to get a pretty good cow because she's figured out how not to do it.
yeah, the next guy that gets them is JBS.
Oh geez. So that's where you're at now, South Dakota.
Yeah, and man, I think this is well, sound like a broken record, but I've been a lot of places and I've worked for a lot of people and I've worked for a lot of good people. I've worked for some not so good people, but this is this is as good a fit for our family as I could ever imagine.
Man, that's
Um,
awesome.
it I had to drag my wife and kids across the country a few times over the last 10 years to get it done, but we'll be here. Our youngest is 6 this year. Um, so we'll be here at least till she's done with school.
That's awesome.
And then, it's my boss is the fourth generation on this place. They settled this ground in 1898. Um, the original brand registry paper is hanging on the wall in my boss's office,
Oh,
along with the Homestead Act signed by Theodore Roosevelt
that's
paperwork.
cool.
Super, super historical place. The whole area is that way, actually.
The kind of place where you can just feel the history. Just it just
Yeah,
hangs there.
I mean, every bit of this place is just soaked in history. So and it's not just this man that I work for. The neighbors' places are the same way. So I really enjoy getting to sit down and talk to the old timers around here because some of the stories you hear and the landmarks and so back in the early 1900s, there was 3 families here that had cattle, and obviously there wasn't a fence in sight, and they they all their cattle ran together and they had to push them to the White River on dry years. The kids would push the cattle 12 miles to water every day and
Oof.
just hang out with them at the river, and then they'd bring them home. But in the springtime, and this is one of my favorite stories about this area. So these 3 families, they during everybody's was calving at the same time. They would, each ranch had somebody out there riding through cattle, and when a calf was born, they got an earmark, and then come time to brand them, they'd row deer them in this big cut bank to the north here, about 4 miles. They'd row deer them the whole works in this big old cut bank, and they had 3 fires, and guys dragging calves, and whatever earmark that calf had, that's whose fire they went to, and it sounds like it was quite a deal.
Man, that'd have been cool to have been part of.
Yeah, and they were gonna do it um for the centennial anniversary of these ranches around here because they were all settled pretty much at the exact same time. So they were going to do it for the 100-year anniversary, but I guess it was bad winter, like snowing or something that year, real bad, and everybody's branding was late, and they ended up. So here it's all snag and drag brandings, but they ended up heading and healing almost at everybody's branding that year because winter lasted so long.
Gotcha. So you've been to like snag and drags, and I'm sure you've used a Nord fork a little bit in that country.
Yeah,
What?
actually, the first place I used a Nord Fork was back home, but there's some Nord Fork Brandons here.
Yeah.
There's um I've been to a couple of head and heel Brandons, but they were in the Sand Hills, and it was a day work deal.
Uh huh. So if you're, so you got a cow outfit, right? And whatever circumstances influence your decision, that's fine. Set up the perfect branding in your eyes.
Oh man, the perfect branding is first of all is the crew.
Sure.
Um, Not too much help, not too little help. Everybody knows exactly what they're doing and is efficient at it. The beer stays in the cooler until you're done.
Yep. All right. How are you
Um,
roping them? Are you roping them off the cow? Or are you snag and drag? What's your setup?
I'm more used to stripping cows off of calves and dragging the calves to the cows. Um, I do know, and I'm a firm believer that it is less stressful on the calf to leave the cows in with them. But there's not been a lot of places I've been that that's super practical. The way every most places I've been, the way things are set up, it just makes more sense to strip the cows off the calves, pan the calves, and start dragging, just healing and dragging.
Sure.
That's that's just what I'm more used to.
Sure.
So that's what I'm picking. If I would have spent as much time in your part of the world as I have on this side of the Rocky Mountains, I'd probably have a different opinion.
That's what's cool about this country and this industry.
Exactly. I mean, and that's what I feel like, and I'm guilty of it myself. I'll stir the manure pot once in a while, but online as I'm talking. But man, all this controversy about different cowboying styles and this, that, and the other thing, and it's just like, man, a good cowboy ought to be able to be a good cowboy anywhere, no matter if he's in the Southwest, if he's in the swamps where I'm originally from, if he's in the brushy country in Texas, if he's in the desert where you're at, the mountains. A good cowboy ought to be able to read a situation, read a cow, and adjust how he handles it accordingly.
100%. I'm a big believer in the country you're in dictates your strong skill sets, but you need to, like, if I were to go down to to cowpuncher land, and they're like, hey, you know, you got a Wade a slick fork, and that's fine because we can't give you another saddle, but we tie off down here for X, Y, and Z reasons. It's like, I ain't never done it. I'm a little bit scared of it. Show me how it works. Let's do it. Win in Rome.
Right, right, exactly. And that's, I mean, and I got one saddle that I ride most of the time, and then I got one that I throw on colts. But like that good saddle of mine depends on what time of the year it is. I might have rubber on the horn. I might not have rubber on the horn. I might be packing a horn knot. I might not be. Like in the springtime, dragging calves to the fire. If there's rubber on my horn, I take it off because I like to. Because I'm almost always on a colt, and I like to be able to slide a little bit of rope.
Sure.
Um, and then that being said, there's guys here that are riding slick fork saddles, and they go out to catch something wild, and they tie it hard on that freaking 5-inch post. Like it's I'd never seen it until I came here, but and then there's also guys. This will make you chuckle and kind of tell you about the kind of. So I've never ever seen somebody put rubber on a slick fork saddle until I was in Nebraska. That was a first for me.
uh, I will. Okay. Confession time here. When I was in high school, I team roped out of a slick fork saddle, so I had rubber on that horn.
All right, well, I mean that makes sense, but I mean like these guys are putting rubber on their post.
What, they want the
Drag,
buckaroo look, but they're scared to let it slide?
Yeah, when they're dragging some calves to the fire, and I'm like, man, I feel like that's backwards, but
I'll be honest, I like in a Brandon pin. So the outfit when I started cowboying professionally, because I cowboyed a little bit growing up and kind of was the rancher's kid, got away kind of with whatever I wanted for a while, and then got out of the industry and this and that and come back to it. And when I started cowboying professionally and learned, they'd run 300 pairs in and you'd only have six ropers. So you had to be as easy on your horse. And they didn't pull any, like, they might run 300 pairs in and say spill 100 or 130 cows.
right.
So it's a big trap and there's only six ropers.
Yeah, and you're pulling them a long ways to the fire.
Yep, exactly. So the way I learned is I had to conserve horse. Like that was number one is don't rim fire anybody and don't get rim fired. Number two is conserve all the horse you can every step of the way. So I learned to slide so much rope that if you were to put a 30-foot rope in my hands, I'd look like it was my first day out there because I would lose it within the first 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, yeah, and
And
that's
it's like
it,
I'll heel a calf, and I mean, like, I'm usually carrying a 60 or 70-foot rope. I'll heel a calf, take one wrap, and let my horse stand there flat footed while the calf slides to the fire with the header pulling it there. And ground crew gets to him, gather my coils up. Takes a little bit longer than somebody that stayed real short. But at the end of the day, my horse is in a lot better shape than the guys that are, ramming and jamming and not hard and fast as in they're tied on or anything, but when they're working real hard and moving real fast.
yeah, yeah, and that's there's I feel like every guy, no matter how good a cowboy he is, has some bad habits
Oh, for sure.
in his stockmanship that show up once in a while, myself included. But it took some maturing on my part at Branning's to like, okay, I don't gotta out rope the next guy. I want to train on this horse because he's 3. And if I drag 10 or 15 calves, so be it. But
Yeah.
as long as every single one of those calves that I drag, my horse works good, I keep my ground crew out of a wreck and just am as helpful as possible to everybody involved,
Right.
that's a success. And you see the guys that are uh dragging one out and they're trotting back in and they ain't even got their rope coiled up yet. Like they're just how many calves can I catch?
No
Because
etiquette.
they hate wrestling that much that they just want to get as many calves out of the pen as they can before it's the next roper's turn.
Yeah.
And
No,
that's
it's
here it's really um everybody, I don't want to say everybody gets to rope, but like this place runs 600 pair. And so they'll put 150 of them in the pen, and one set of ropers will drag that pen, and then everybody will take a water break, and then a fresh set of ropers drags the next 150, and
sure.
so on and so forth until we're out of calves.
Yeah.
So I don't get in a hurry because I know everybody here is pretty efficient, and not many people are going to get you in a wreck, and if they do, it damn sure wasn't intentional.
Right. Right. Now maybe as my YouTube channel grows, I'll be able to bring you out to old Buckaroo Land out here.
No, that'd be all right as long as they don't laugh at my puncher style gear.
Ah,
I'm way more for being all over the place. I dang sure lean more towards the puncher style, but
maybe
um
maybe
I'm
opposite will
open
happen. I'll end
minded.
up in your country.
Yeah, and I mean I'm open minded, and this part of South Dakota that I'm into. There's a lot of real versatile guys,
Yeah.
and I like that too. I ain't the only son of a buck here that might tie off from time to time.
Right.
Um, and I'm still out there by myself most of the time. So depending on what I'm mounted on, That determines whether or not I'm going to tie on or if I'm going to dally, and
Sure.
the size the size of the bovine, and there's a lot of different factors go into me deciding how I'm gonna go about this task. But usually when I'm tied on, and it might be backwards from other guys' thought process, but usually when I'm tied on, it's because I'm by myself and I got a yearling or smaller. If it's a cow or a bull, I might recruit some help nowadays in my old age. Um,
Jeez, old age.
5, 6, 7 years ago, I'd dab it on that big stuff by myself, and my stockmanship was not as good.
Yeah,
My stockmanship was okay, but my horsemanship has grown a lot recently. Thankfully, I think about my horse a lot more in the situations I'm putting them in,
100%.
and that that's just came from poor decision making, really, and that's just my fault. But I've crippled some good horses,
You
or
can't. I,
not plumb crippled them, but sure enough hurt them.
I don't care how many books you read, how many clinicians you go spend time with, whatever. You cannot replace the real life experiences, the school of hard knocks.
No,
You can't do it.
absolutely not. And that's in the ranching and cowboying industry is known to be kind of a gatekeeping, quote unquote, profession. It's not that we're trying to gatekeep. It's just that no matter how much we help somebody that's trying to come into this world, um, nothing can replace experience.
Nothing can replace experience, and I know so many people that want into this world part time, and it doesn't work that way.
No, I mean, you gotta live for it. Like I didn't like, we started our conversation about auto body and stuff. Well, that was just something so I could get a scholarship to college rodeo. Like
Right.
I didn't have any other plans. Like this is all I've wanted to do my whole life. And I've been blessed enough to be able to, number one, find a wife that supports my curse that I have.
That's a good way to put it.
Mm.
We share it, brother.
because because not all women are created equal. It takes a hell of a woman to be married to a hired man.
Yeah.
um and and she has had to live in some shacks, and she's had to put up with some terrible situations.
I yeah, our Bailey's the same way. I mean, you knew Bailey way before
Yeah.
either one of us figured out what we were gonna do. And I remember living at one ranch, and we're sitting on the couch. It was, I don't know. I got done early or something that day. I don't want to say it was a day off. But we're sitting on the couch, and I don't know. I was tinkering with something, and the clouds come in, and she didn't say nothing. She just got up and started setting a pot here and a pan there and a pot over here, and kind
You
of,
didn't know the roof leaked.
no, I kind of watched her and thought, oh, okay, maybe she's got a game she's gonna play or something. About 15 minutes later, it's raining, and those pots and pans, you didn't have to adjust one of them to catch the drips.
Yeah, you had never, well, I mean, you are from northern Nevada. It probably don't rain a whole bunch, but she
No, and
had it
when it
figured
did,
out.
I always had the good fortune of being a horseback in it, not in a house.
Exactly. Exactly. But
Oh,
no, and that's like you were saying earlier about there's different levels of out there, and being married with kids, you can only get so far out there before it's too far out there.
yeah,
Um,
there's my kids are, one's just over 2 years and one's not even 3 weeks. And to go some of the places we've been when it was just her and I, it would take a different train of thought to go back there now. Now that we have
oh,
kids.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's some of them, like there's still some places probably in your part of the country and places that I've heard about in the Southwest that, it's a 3, 4 hour drive to a very small town.
Yeah. Yep.
And, that's for us in particular, my family, I got 3 daughters. That's too far out there. Um, if I was 21 and single, I'd love it.
Right.
But now, we got to be within reasonable distance of some amenities. And that's, like I said, we're far enough, yet we're close enough if we need whatever, whether it's parts for the pickup or things like that, or just even something as simple as groceries. We're close enough. It usually does end up being an all day deal,
Sure.
but it's once a month type of thing.
Sure. You said you're sitting in your leather shop.
Yes, sir.
You want to pitch your business? And cowboys don't
Oh,
make it these days without side hustles.
yeah, and that's you bring that up, and you made some leggings and some armitas and stuff there for a little bit. I remember chatting with you
Yep.
years ago about that,
Yep. I
but
did.
it was, I joke around and call it the necessary hobby is how it started. Um,
Yep.
whether it's you're repairing your own gear or like you don't make a lot of money cowboying for a living, so
Cheaper to buy
if
a
you want,
hide than a set of shafts.
yeah, if you want nice things, you gotta learn to either go hungry for a while, which ain't an option with a family, or learn to make it yourself.
Right.
So I built a few pairs of leggings for myself, and looking back, it probably would have been cheaper had I had paid somebody to build them that knew what they were doing, because I probably made, I don't know, 4 or 5, maybe 6 pair for myself before I finally got some to fit how I wanted them to fit.
I,
And
I still got the first pair of Armidas I made, and I don't even ride in them. I'm so ashamed of them.
oh man, I know, me and my wife talk about this all the time because she's an artist. She does anything that comes out of our leather shop that has any kind of carving on it or any kind of real artistic work. My wife makes. I make the using cowboy tack,
Yeah.
but no, it was something we started doing, and it was a hobby. Yeah, but like you're saying, I look at the Facebook memories on this day 3 years ago, and it's a really crude bridle, or it's a absolutely horrendous set of leggings. Like man, I can't believe I charged somebody money for that.
Yep. Yep.
But no, we're staying busy with it. It's turned into a pretty steady side hustle. Spent money, bought a sewing machine. That was a big step for us, and it's really changed the quality of our work. And no, it's been really really good. I'm grateful. Sometimes I get overwhelmed, honestly, because I'm here to work on this ranch. I'm not here to build cowboy gear, but sometimes it feels like I spend more hours in this garage hammering on dead cows than I do dealing with live cows.
Oh yeah.
But
That's why
no,
I slowed down the leather work because I honestly, I wouldn't say I got burnt out on it. I got burnt out on missing the rest of life.
yeah, and that's luckily, we're all here, and my wife and I, we both enjoy the leather work, so that makes it a little more enjoyable getting to do it next to my spouse. But there are times, like here just not too long ago, I was feeling real overwhelmed because I look at my stack of orders, and it keeps growing. Like I get something finished, and I'm just so happy to put that invoice slip in its folder and get it shipped out. And then I go through, and it's like, holy smokes, because my wife manages the business page, and she takes most of the orders. It's like, holy smokes, I get rid of one invoice and 3 more appear. And it was kind of a wake up call here. And this is just a few days ago. It's like, man, be grateful to have people that are willing to wait for something that you built.
Yeah, it's hu- it's it's humbling in a weird kind of way
Yeah,
because they're
it's
they're stoked
over.
to get it, and you look at it and you say, I should have done this different, could have done that better.
Right. And it's always improving, and it's all, even, we've had the sewing machine for almost 2 years now. And like I said, that really changed the quality of our work once we got it. And it it made it possible for us to build a lot of different items than we had been building. Um, because there's certain things that just ain't gonna that ain't it ain't gonna work to hand stitch it, and it's not gonna hold up if you buck stitch it type of stuff. Like,
Right. I
um
I won't tell you what I refer to buck stitching as. I hate
it's
it.
awful.
I,
It's awful. That was I don't know. So the only thing I build that I number are my leggings.
yeah.
Um this pair I got on the bench right now is number 48. Or I just finished them tonight after we started this deal. Actually, I just finished peening the rivets over on the belts. But like, even a pair from a year ago is, I've changed my patterns and I've refined them, and I've seen, and getting honest feedback from customers. What do you like about them? What don't you like about them? And just changing what needs changed, uh, making making stuff more durable so they last longer. Just
Right.
a lot of different things, and it's been a lot of growth really quickly. And yeah, I don't want to sound ungrateful because my plate is full, but the goal was to eat.
Yeah.
Like,
Good way to put it. That's
it's,
awesome.
with where the heifers will start calving here in about 45 days, and I got plenty of orders to keep me busy until then. And when somebody contacts me and is like, "Hey, I'd like to get in the books for a set of shotgun shafts," it's like, "All right, like I'm minimum 2 months out right now. All right, well, I'll get this, let's get my order started so I don't get bumped back any further." So, they're more confident in my list getting even longer, which I hope isn't true. But
Yeah.
it
That's awesome.
no, it's been a blessing, and it's helpful to be able to fix my own stuff if I wreck something.
Yep.
I finally, this pair of leggings that I built myself is, I've kept these around longer than any other leggings. Man, I felt like I was always the guy with brand new shafts on there for a while.
Yeah. That's funny because with the several pairs I built, I never built myself one. I built well that very first pair was for myself, and that like I said, they're so atrocious. They don't sit right. They turn in, and my knees end up uncovered, and
Oh yeah.
that's like. Anyways, you want to give your business a little shout out?
Oh yeah. I mean, we don't have a website. We just got a Facebook page. It's KE Maker Leather Goods and Cowboy Gear. It's kind of a long one, but we're based here in Southwest South Dakota, and we build just about everything but boots and saddles anymore.
Working gear made by a working man.
Yeah, and that's kind of important to some people. I've tried to refine my products to where I use the things that I make, and I know what works and what doesn't. I shouldn't say I know. I think I know what works and what doesn't. I know what works for me. So it no, it's been good. We're blessed to be busy,
For sure.
and
Well, cool. Well, I think we just crossed over the 2 hour mark here.
I see that.
Yeah. Um,
Time flies when you're reminiscing.
man, we're gonna do this again for sure.
Absolutely. No, I look forward to it. This is a good time. I've never been a part of one of these. I just kind of got into the listening podcast thing. Um, I got some Bluetooth right now. I just kind of feeding cattle, so got time to just turn some background noise on, and I've been listening to podcasts, and it's it's cool. I enjoy a good BS session, whether I'm involved in it or not.
No, 100%. And that's what it is. And what's cool is there's so many guys doing it. I mean, you can go down rabbit holes listening to podcasts.
Oh yeah,
It's
and some of them get a little bit out there for me.
yeah,
You know, the what do they call it? The algorithm, the suggested. People who listen to this also listen to this, and it's like, whoa, that's not my kind of deal.
no, no, and I try to be open minded, but man, there's some paths you just don't want to walk down with it.
No, absolutely. There's my mother always says it takes all kinds, but man, there's just some kinds that I don't really want to be associated with.
Yep, exactly. All right, well, Eli, you got any final thoughts? Tell everybody.
Oh man, just shoot, kind of put me on the spot there. Final thoughts.
That's the fun part
Final,
about being the host. I get to do
yeah. The
that.
no, just I guess if there's a young person or even an old person listening to this that finds himself, you know what, I think I want to be a cowboy when I grow up, type of thing. Don't be scared to ask questions. A good cowboy is going to answer your questions honestly. He's going to more than likely help you. He might be grouchy the whole time, but if you do this long enough, you'd be grouchy too sometimes. But no, if anybody's out there, go into it with an open mind. Find somebody that's respectable. Find somebody that treats their horses and their dogs and their wife and kids well. And don't be scared to ask questions. It's not as gate kept of a community as you think it is. You just it all takes time and experience, and you can't get experience if you don't start.
Man, that's awesome advice. All right, guys, we will catch you on the next one. Make sure and check out RubeckNevada.com. Get yourself some ranch ropes and other good stuff. Check out KE Makers on Facebook and get you some leather work and gear that pretty good quality. I'm gonna get myself a set of Latigos from him here. He just don't know it yet.
I got a bunch of them cut here. They're needing some stitches still.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Eli.
You bet. Appreciate it, man. It's good talking with you.
You too.